Listen, we're in the midst of a revolution in this country, and either you stand up and speak out like I do and be counted, or don't blame somebody else when they come to take you away. I'm telling you how bad this is. Bernie is the most dangerous demagogue in the modern history of American politics. Don't underestimate this man. And I'll go a step further. He's liable to win the primary no matter what Hillary does. Now, she's rigging it, I know that. Her machine is much more powerful than his, and she's rigging it with the delegates. I get that. But don't be surprised if he doesn't become the nominee of the Democrat Socialist Islamist Party, USA. Don't sit there and feel sorry for yourself or walk around saying that it's a racist society. You know where you'll get with that? Nowhere. You'll wind up in jail anyway, no matter what you do. If you're going to pick on everybody around you and say it's got to do with race, you're going to wind up in prison anyway. And that's what happens when you get fed this lie by Bernie Sanders, the most dangerous man in America, modern American political history. See, this communist is actually a threat to our survival as a nation. This old man is actually the most evil man that's ever appeared on a political stage. He is the most racially divisive, the most politically divisive. This man will set off a race war to keep moving ahead in the polls. You have no idea how dangerous this man is. Did you hear the big lie? African Americans and Latinos not only face the general economic crisis of low wages and high unemployment, we just showed you that 75% of tech workers in Silicon Valley are foreign born. Take a guess who got displaced in Silicon Valley and all the high-tech areas. White men. White men were thrown out so that the pigs could make another dollar. It's not enough he's worth $80 billion. He needs to be worth $90 billion by the end of the year and make believe that he's in favor of immigrants. So here's Sanders feeding the big lie. And then he talks about poor educational opportunities. So far as I know, all educational opportunities in public schools are about the same. What does he mean by poor educational opportunities? Let's analyze that, Bernie. I come from an immigrant family. I came from a poor family. I went to public schools my entire life. I couldn't afford to go to a private college. I couldn't afford to go to a private high school like Barack Obama did. Barack Obama went to a private high school. Barack Obama went to a private college. Look how it's worked out for him. I didn't have those advantages. But the issue is, what do you mean they have a lack of opportunities? Poor white kids go to bad schools too. Poor black kids go to bad schools. Some thrive in these schools, Bernie. It has little to do with race. It has to do with character. Period. End of story. And everybody knows that. Ask the teachers if it's wrong. I'm a former school teacher, and I've taught in all black schools in case you don't know it. Shall I tell you about those experiences? Am I allowed to remind you of who I actually am as opposed to who the liars say I am? Can I tell you about the schools I worked in? Can I tell you about the heartbreaking scenes I saw? I will one day, but not now because I'm not in the mood to do it. There's an awful lot about me you don't know that you need to know before you draw your stupid conclusions. I love the haters on the internet. I love the warriors with a keyboard who are quick to hate and put everybody down without knowing what they're talking about. But the fact of the matter is, poor is poor. It doesn't matter what your race is. Some will thrive and some won't. And it's all got to do with character, nothing else. And I'll tell you something else. If you walk around thinking that somebody owes you something, you better remember what I'm about to tell you. A man was sitting on a park bench, and he had his head down. I don't know what his race was. It doesn't matter. He had his head down, and he was depressed. And an older woman sat down next to him and started to talk to him, so what's the matter? And he told her, he says, look, she said to him, if you think someone owes you a living, what you should know is it's up to you to go out and get that living, not to sit there and complain about it. That's what she told him. In a way, she slapped him in the face verbally. That's my opinion. And I listened very carefully to this. This was the most racially pandering so-called debate I've ever seen in my life. Everything was about race. Everything was about race. And if you'd like me to be a little more specific, since I'm a scholar who is also an expert in statistics, I'll be a little more specific because I've heard this rubbish for 35, 40 years now. Here in Northern California, there's a community that is largely African-American. It's called Marin City, California. It's right next to Sausalito, California. It is largely an African-American community because their grandfathers came here from the South to build the Liberty ships of World War II, God bless them. They worked in the Kaiser shipyards right there in Sausalito. I know them very well because I made my first demo tape in a converted building, Quonset hut, that became a sound studio. 1994, I went in there in 93, and I made a demo tape, which I sent out to 300 stations because I wanted to get into radio and I wanted to be a talk radio host. No one came and said, oh, hey, come on, we got a job for you. I had to go out and seek it. I sent out my tape to 400 stations. I made the demo tape there, but I'm getting distracted. Marin City, largely African-American community, 2 generations later. Schools have some of the worst scores in the state. So 25, 30 years ago, the liberals of Marin County started to say it was based on racism. The low scores were based on racism in Marin City, California. And so they started demanding that the state of California spend more money per student in this African-American community called Marin City than any other school district around it, or for that matter, in the entire state. And I forget the numbers at the time. It was something like $14,000 in tax money per student, as opposed to an average of $7,000 or $8,000. Guess what happened? The scores didn't go up. They stayed the same. Because it's not a matter of how much money or how many books or how many this and how many that. It's a matter of learning and wanting to learn. It's a matter of the parents, and it's a matter of the kids themselves. It has very little to do with race. And to me, that told me an awful lot. So when I hear this coming back all over again as a former educator, it really agitates me to listen to this sick demagogue, Bernie Sanders, put out these lies that are setting the nation on fire. He's setting the nation on fire. Now, if you want me to prove it to you, since I'm really warming up right now, I'll prove to you what Bernie Sanders and Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and the former Attorney General have done to this country. Let's look at some of the stories of the day that you will not read in your local rag because they won't publish them. They only publish certain stories with certain narratives, certain villains. Here's one from Washington State. A Muslim shouting Allahu Akbar tries to behead a prison officer, almost cut his head off. In Ohio, a machete-wielding Muslim injured patrons at a restaurant which was owned by a pro-Israel Arab Christian. The Muslim went table to table with a machete, chopping people's hands off and hitting them with a machete without saying a word. Is that a result of race, Bernie? You're burning the nation down, Bernie. And while you're at it, Bernie, burning the nation down, socialist France, listen to what I said, Bernie, a real socialist, not a demagogue like you. Socialist France is closing down as many as 160 mosques. 160 mosques are being shut down by Hollande, a true socialist leader, because they found war-grade weapons in some of them. Bernie, you're burning the nation down, Bernie. And by the way, if things are so bad in America today, Bernie and Hillary, who do you have to blame for it, since Barack Obama has been a virtual dictator for 7 and some odd years right now? He's gotten virtually everything he's ever wanted done. So who are you going to blame for that? The vast right-wing conspiracy in the White House, Bernie and Hillary? Oh, I know, but there's a lot of work yet to be done. He hasn't taken away all the guns. He hasn't given free health care to every third worlder on the planet. He hasn't yet evicted white people from their communities. There's an awful lot to be done, Bernie, isn't there?